After watching this story, you will cry. It can happen to you. Imagine what it would be like to be betrayed by a loved one, get rid of a previously loved one, learn the sad news about your wife and son's lover, and go to prison for the rest of your life. How will you feel and how will your life change? Watch to the end. This story is based on real events and has shocked millions of people. It will change your ideas about love and trust. The Cycle of Revenge. Chapter 1. Betrayal. Mark and Sarah had been married for 12 years, and they had been happy for most of that time. They built a life together, a cozy home, 2 children, and a shared dream of growing old together. Mark was a hard-working mechanic known for his dedication and honesty. Sarah, a nurse, was compassionate and caring, always putting others before herself. But over time, cracks began to appear in their marriage. The long hours Mark spent in the garage left him exhausted and distant, while Sarah felt increasingly lonely and unappreciated. They stopped talking, laughing, and chatting. The love that had once bound them was fading, replaced by resentment and silence. Sarah came home late one night, her cheeks flushed and her eyes sparkling in a way Mark hadn't seen in years. She claimed that she worked overtime at the hospital, but Mark couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Over the next few weeks, Sarah's behavior became even more erratic. She spent more and more time on the phone, often running away to answer calls, and her excuses for being late became more and more unconvincing. Mark's suspicions grew, and one night, when Sarah was in the shower, he checked her phone. What he discovered shocked him. Sarah was having an affair with a man named Daniel, a doctor from her hospital. The messages were explicit, filled with declarations of love and plans for a future together. Sarah even told Daniel that she wanted to leave Mark and marry him. Mark was overwhelmed by a wave of emotions: anger, betrayal, and deep, aching sadness. He always trusted Sarah. He couldn't even imagine that she would betray him, but the evidence was irrefutable. That night, he came face to face with her, his voice shaking with rage. "How could you do this to me, in front of our family?" "What is it?" he asked. Sarah's face paled, but she didn't deny it. "I'm sorry, Mark. I never meant to hurt you, but I'm not happy anymore. I haven't been happy for a long time." Her words cut deeper than the betrayal itself. It seemed to Mark that his world was collapsing around him. He begged her to stay, to work on their marriage, but Sarah was adamant. She packed up and left, moving in with Daniel and filing for divorce. Every night he thought about what she had done, but he could not understand why she had done this to him. Mark tried to console himself by listening to music, going out with friends, and walking in the woods. A few days later, Mark's friend recommended him a book that told him how to forgive betrayal. Mark read this book, but it did not help him. He could not understand what prompted his wife, whom he loved, to leave him. Mark took care of his family, spent every day at work, getting tired like a serf. He hired a psychologist, but his long attempts to calm down were unsuccessful. The pills did not help, and in an attempt to forget what was happening, Mark began using illegal substances. He started having problems with his friends because he lost control of himself and often broke down. At night, Mark began to wake up because he was plagued by panic attacks and sometimes even sleep paralysis. His life became empty. He wanted nothing, because even the significant successes that suddenly began to occur in his life did not bring him pleasure. He was temporarily admitted to a psychiatric hospital. The food was good, and there was respect from the staff. He had a private room, for which he paid a lot of money. But nothing helped him. Every day seemed like the last for him, and after a while he decided. Chapter 2. Revenge. Mark was devastated. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and couldn't focus on anything but the pain Sarah had caused him. He felt as if some part of him had died, and the only thing keeping him afloat was a burning desire for revenge. He started chasing Sarah and Daniel, watching their every move. He saw them together, laughing and holding hands, and it fueled his rage. He wanted them to suffer, to feel the same pain as he did. He wanted to destroy their happiness, as they had destroyed his. One night, Mark's anger reached a boiling point. He waited outside Daniel's apartment, watching as Sarah arrived and went inside. He sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He had a knife with him, a weapon that he had taken from his garage. He didn't have a plan, but he knew he couldn't let them get away with it. When Sarah left the apartment a few hours later, Mark followed her. She was alone and walking to her car, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. Mark quietly approached her, his heart pounding in his chest. "Sarah," he said in a cold and firm voice. She turned around and her eyes widened in fear when she saw the knife in his hand. "Mark, what are you doing? Please don't do this." But Mark was beyond reasonable. He lunged at her, the knife slicing through the air. Sarah screamed, but it was too late. He pierced her, and she collapsed to the ground, her soul leaving her. Mark stood over her, his hands shaking as he realized the reality of what he had done. He wanted to take revenge, but now he only felt empty. He dropped the knife and ran, leaving Sarah's helpless body behind. Chapter 3. Consequences. The next morning, the police found Sarah's body, and it didn't take them long to put all the facts together. Mark was arrested a few hours later, guilt written all over his face. He didn't resist or try to explain himself. He just nodded when his rights were read out to him, resigned to his fate. The trial was fast and brutal. Mark pleaded guilty, saving everyone the agony of a lengthy trial. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As he was led away in handcuffs, he felt a strange sense of relief. He got his revenge, but it cost him everything. Meanwhile, Daniel could only pick up the pieces. He was devastated by Sarah's fate, and he was tormented by guilt and grief. He blamed himself for what had happened, convinced that if he hadn't been stalking Sarah, she would still be alive. The severity of his guilt became unbearable. He believed that he had to protect her from this incident. One night, Daniel jumped off the window. Chapter 4. Torture. Mark's life in prison was a living hell. He was placed in a high-security institution surrounded by violent criminals who had no sympathy for the man who had eliminated his wife. From the moment he arrived, he became a target. Other prisoners considered him weak, an easy target for their brutality. They beat him, bullied him, and turned his life into a living nightmare. Mark tried to keep to himself, but he couldn't get rid of the constant torment. He was stripped of his dignity, humanity, and any semblance of hope. The guards turned a blind eye to the abuse, considering Mark to be nothing more than a monster who deserved everything he got. He was denied medical care, visits, and any chance of redemption. He was alone, trapped in pain and suffering. Chapter 5. Meeting with Mark. Mark has always been a man of few words, but the severity of his actions has turned him into a likeness of his former self. After serving 10 years of a life sentence, he became a quiet, self-absorbed man, spending his days in the prison library or writing letters to his children, letters he knew would never be sent. He accepted his fate, but the guilt of what he had done still haunted him. One day, when he was sitting in the visiting room, he was told that a visitor had come to him. It was an unusual occurrence, and no one had visited him for many years. When he was led to the booth, his heart was pounding and his hands were shaking as he picked up the phone. On the other side of the glass was his daughter, Lily. She was in her early 20s, but because of the pain in her eyes, she looked much older. Mark's breath caught in his throat. He hadn't seen her since the trial, and the sight of her now, so broken and tired, shocked him. "Lily," he said, his voice breaking, I do not know what to say." Lily didn't answer at first. She just stared at him, anger, sadness, and something else mixed in her eyes that he couldn't understand. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ethan is gone, Dad." Mark's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "He jumped off the window," Lily said, her voice breaking. 2 weeks ago. He couldn't take it anymore." It seemed to Mark that the ground had disappeared from under his feet. His son, his little boy, is missing. The weight of this news crushed him, and he leaned forward, pressing his forehead against the glass. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no, no." Lily's tears flowed freely, but her voice sounded flat, almost cold. "I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to figure out why. Why did he do it? Why did he think there was no other way out? And I keep coming back to you." Mark looked up, tears streaming down his face too. Me? Yes, you are, Lily said, raising her voice. Do you have any idea what it was like for us after what you did? Do you know what it's like to grow up knowing who your father is? So that everyone at school whispers about you? So that you don't have friends? Because their parents didn't want them around you? So that mom gets upset and goes into her own world, leaving us to fend for ourselves? Mark opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He never allowed himself to think about how his actions affected his children. He was so consumed by guilt and pain that he ignored them, telling himself it was for the best. Ethan couldn't handle it, Lily continued, her voice trembling. He blamed himself for what happened. He thought that if he was a better son, maybe you wouldn't have. Maybe things would have been different. He carried this guilt with him every day, and it destroyed him. Mark felt as if he had been stabbed in the heart with a blade. Lily, I am. I never wanted all this. I never meant to hurt you or Ethan. I was so angry, so confused. But you hurt us, Lily interrupted in a harsh voice. You're hurting us more than you can imagine. And now Ethan's gone, and I'm staying here trying to pick up the pieces. I don't even know how to mourn him because I'm so angry at him, at you, at Mom, at myself. Mark's shoulders shook with sobs. The weight of guilt and grief overwhelmed him. I'm so sorry, Lily. I'm so sorry for everything. I never wanted this to happen. Lily looked at him, and there was a mixture of pity and anger in her eyes. Regret won't bring Ethan back. Regret won't fix what you've broken. I don't even know why I came here. I guess I just wanted you to know what your actions cost us. What it cost him. Mark nodded shyly, lowering his head. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve this. But please, Lily, don't let this ruin you too. You're all I have left. Lily stood up, pressing her palms against the glass. You have no right to say that. You lost the right to call me your daughter the moment you pulled the trigger. I came here to tell you the truth, and now I've had enough. I never want to see you again. She hung up the phone and left, leaving Mark alone in the booth. It felt like he'd been sitting there for hours, replaying every word she'd said in his head. The weight of his guilt was unbearable, and for the first time in many years, he allowed himself to truly feel the pain he had caused. Chapter 6. Reflections. That night, lying in his cell, Mark thought about Ethan. He thought about the little boy who loved baseball, who always respected him, who believed that he would protect him. He thought about the kind of man Ethan had become, the man who carried the weight of his father's sins until it overwhelmed him. Mark now realized that his quest for revenge had destroyed not only his own life, but also the lives of those he loved the most. He was so engrossed in his anger and pain that he didn't notice the harm he was causing. As the years passed, Mark turned into a semblance of the man he once was. His body was covered with scars, both physical and emotional. He spent his days in silence, staring at the walls of his cell, haunted by the memories of what he had done. He thought about Sarah, the life they had lived together, and the love they had lost. He thought of Daniel, a man he had never really known, whose life had been ruined by his actions. He dreamed about Ethan every night. He was worried about what was happening to Lily now, who she was with, and whether she was alive. And he thought about himself, the choice he had made, and the consequences he faced. He wanted to take revenge, but all he did was destroy himself. He became the monster he had always feared, a man consumed by anger and hatred. And now he was paying the price. Staring at the ceiling, Mark made a silent vow with tears in his eyes. He will spend the rest of his life trying to atone for his sins, but not for himself, but for the sake of his children. He will honor his son's memory by becoming a better person, even if it is too late to fix anything. It was little consolation, but it was all he had left. What do you think about this story? Write in the comments, subscribe, and wait for the next video. It will show you the true essence of a person who shocks you. If you don't subscribe, you will make a huge mistake.